Yo, so this weekend there was going to be the Korean Pokemon Trainer Cup final round. There's more than a few things worth talking about with this event, because ultimately the Master Division did end up being cancelled. I kind of want to go into some detail on why that happened, and why we presumably will have zero Korean representation in the Pokemon World Championship this year. And kind of just give some insight on what happened. So yeah, the tournament was supposed to take place this weekend. Juniors and seniors has taken place. There was no DQs in that side of it, so all that ended up going on still. But first of all, to start the story is during the qualification of the tournament, one of the players who finished in top 4, because essentially they all played a 10-game ladder tournament, and the top 4 players would make it onto this bigger stage and then play that big event there. But an interesting thing happened with that, right? Because instead of the top 4 players just having that play, one of those players got DQ'd in Blue VGC. So DQ'd Blue VGC's day 2 and refused to elaborate on why it happened. The mail sent to him mentions that he violated Pokemon Score and violates the regulations, and therefore will be disqualified in finals, plus may be banned in future events as well. Which I'll say I don't know what could qualify for a ban in this setting, considering that he did play the online tournament, right? He was completely able to play the online tournament. The in-game hack system didn't catch what he did, so like presumably that makes you think it's some kind of error with his Nintendo account and how it's like linked or something. But that's really a very big mystery, and we have no real indication on what that could possibly be, which kind of proves a bit of a problem, right? Because like it's one thing to be DQ'd, it's another thing to be DQ'd for like a unknown reason, right? Because essentially this caused a huge rift in the Korean scene, and this is not something unique either with Korea, because as we have pointed out here about Korea, unexplained DQs have happened in Trainer Cup without any context every year. 2020 third DQ, top 4 played by 3 players. 2021 5th and 6th DQ'd, and now we have a 3rd place DQ'd, top 4 played by 3 players in 2022. And now we have this situation where a player in top 4 got DQ'd before the final round and loses their chance here. But the story doesn't just end there, as seeing how this was happening to them, the Korean competitive scene decided to go out and actually, they actually went out and decided to use metronome teams. We got Mija here using a team with this metronome on Iron Hands, metronome Palafin, metronome, right? Nash has all metronomes and has a Florgus named Blue. So all the Korean players essentially united against this decision, against Blue VGC. And ultimately, what the result on that, right, is now there's no... They're this gone. Wait, let me see it. There we go, there's the email. I have so many tabs up. But yeah, now the situation is the Master Division final round has been cancelled. So all 4 participants will be disqualified in the tournament. Therefore, there will be no day 2 invites for Worlds, and we likely just won't have a single Korean player at the World Championships this year. We did have some other people comment on some of this situation too, which I do just want to mention as well. Where's Mr. Edu? But yeah, this is really this bewildering thing overall. Like, you see this? Hey, is there any rule that prohibits players from carrying the move metronome? Because once again, all they did, out of protest, right? All of them are running metronome. Perfectly legal to do. It's not like a valid strategy in competitive sense at all. But, and it's an act of protest, obviously, right? But there's no real rule for forbidding this. But instead, they decided to punish this as well. So it's like, you know, a little rough, right? Not having any Pokemon players in day 2, that's actually embarrassing. And I just don't have words, you know. It's just one of those things where you think would never happen, and it's happened essentially this multiple times. Because like this isn't even the only event that we've had some kind of like misgivings about. There's like Japan nationals misgiving. There's been misgivings over like Singapore, Taiwan, Malaysia. Basically all the Asian circuits right now are just having like a lot of problems with them, and all their like competitive players are upset with those problems. And that's kind of honestly was going on for years like that. But ever since like TPC has taken more direct control of more regions, the problem's only escalated to like every place that's under TPC is just like, oh, this circus is horrible. It's awful. Well, why are we under this? And needless to say, this is not really working out. Senior divisions also have had some stuff too, but this is on the matches directly here. Senior division players have shared that they were not allowed to read OTS. And another interesting thing about the OTS in the Korean circuit and also Japan is it's open team sheets, but it's closed Terra instead of open team sheets open Terra, which is a little bit of a problem. But essentially this creates two separate divisions on how the format is played, as the West always has open team sheets open Terra, and then the East is having like open team sheet closed Terra. So there's a bit of a distinction problem there that isn't too great either, in a case that is like super not necessary. And usually there's already like other distinctions with how the two circuits plays. Like Japan Nash was best of one for such a long time, right? While best of three was like literally every other event, which creates a lot of like weird distinctions on how like the event is played. So I think that's like kind of worth talking about too, because there's like, as an aside, that's from like how Korea's problems and all that too. There's just so many like random things that I feel like are this not really how they should go, and not really how they should be communicated, that it creates like a lot of problems. Because there's also a problem with some other events too with this like registering. I believe it was Hong Kong actually, where they tried to register right, but they got this very cryptic email. I'm gonna see if I can pull that up as well, because like there's been like such a consistent amount of problems with all of these events recently that it's just kind of insane to think about. And this doesn't make any sense, right? And like, I don't really know what you're supposed to do about this as a competitive player. It's like, you really don't have any say on this. You kind of just have to deal with the blows and hope that things just don't go bad. Like, there's another situation that was brought up by like Matadome with a Pokemon Bank coming out where items like Pixie Plate are now legal, and we weren't notified whether, they weren't notified whether Pixie Plate would be able to be played and all that stuff. But yeah, this rule is announced after Box Lock, since Box Lock is irreversible. So there's like, there's so many like the small problems with how this circuit has been ran that it's just like hard to really just be happy about how this competitive scene is going right now in 2023. And what should have frankly have been a time to give us a better shot to this help the circuit and this help kind of revitalize the scene, right? This is a new game. Pokemon's a bigger deal than ever. Like there's more VGC players. There's events are getting like record numbers, and yet we're having all these errors out on the eastern side, and it's just like frankly bewildering when Pokemon should be at its very biggest. And I just don't know. This don't know. And yeah, this is the situation on Taiwan. I do want to go over it as well, because like there's so many of the situations just all around around these eastern TPC competitive circuits that is just frankly bewildering. But yeah, this is a full little thing on this, on some of the misgrievings on how they were treated. The format for Taiwan 1 month before the scheduled Taiwan Nationals announcement was suddenly made on the Pokemon's website. Asian players this year must play an online qualifier for their nationals, and all the nationals will be single elimination, which is a very bad format, and it's not at all how the West works, and I don't think any competitive players really like this. But yeah, many players have booked transportation and accommodation for nationals without knowing they need to play a qualifier. Pretty big problem as well. Qualifier for 128 players. is questionable when TCG allows more than 1,000 players in the same venue. Best of one single eliminations is uncompetitive and greatly increases the risk of players traveling. True. And Taiwan Nationals last year had a 2-day Swiss format. This sudden change without justification does not benefit either players and TBC, which is baffling. The timetable. The worst part is this was secretly updated on their official website, which we see this with the Korean issues, with like the issues with Hong Kong and their communication. A lot of this is just purely communication issues because they don't really announce this like significantly in advance, so you kind of just have to like guess and this hope, and maybe you'll just get randomly screwed. And that's the key problem with how a lot of TPC circuits have gone, because ultimately we're seeing what happens when everyone gets screwed. But yeah, leaving players the time to prepare and showing TPC's lack of care. The confirmation emails for the qualified players were also sent 3 days before Nationals. The inquiry link in the email was even broken at first. By the time it was fixed, it was 1 day before Nationals, so no player actually received responses. The last social media post was made 1 hour before the team submission deadline, announcing they had sent the emails to qualified players for team submission. Which I think is needless to say, if you only have like a 1 hour timetable of when you're notified that you're going to get emailed to be locked in, then it's like you're probably going to miss it, right? The mishandling. On top of the timetable issues, the whole tournament is run awfully by TPC with zero planning and project management. Several incidents show they did not put effort and thought into it. Players arrived without knowing it is OTS, and the local TO team had to print out all team sheets in color and laminate in the last minute because TPC instructed so. The exploitable online qualifier led to one player qualifying with 2 accounts, and then he intentionally signed up twice for double entry prizes. After this problematic behavior was found, TBC only DQ'd one of his accounts, allowing him to continue playing using the other account, which I'll give a personal opinion on that. I think that's fine, but if he did get double DQ'd, he kind of deserves it too for exploiting the system, even though he definitely would have deserved the qualification there for at least one. So I think that was a pretty decent decision by TPC out of all of them, so I'll take that one. But yeah, that is a little scummy, to say the least. But yeah, compared to the rest of Asia with 4 World Championship invites each, Taiwan, the biggest community, is given 3 because of the questionable reason that our previous regionals also gave the winner a day 1 invite, which I think having day 1 invites off regionals is cool, but they shouldn't take away from the other big major events, and having only 3 means the 4th player, and I don't think there's much of a difference between being 3rd and 4th in any competitive circuit, so you know, let's give an extra invite. TPC also gave said winner the advantage of starting the Nationals from top 8. As a result, he won the Nationals as well. So Taiwan is left with 3 World Championship representatives this year. TPC refused their request from players and TOs to award 1 more invite for the 4th player spot. And I'll say this is completely unfair, because like he already has his day 1 invite. He should not be a part of this system in the first place. Which the reason that player decided to go for the win, of course, was he would get a day 2 invite, which skipping a whole day of competition at Worlds is of course very important. So like the player made the objectively right decision, but somehow that ended up punishing its whole region for, well, it just ended up punishing his whole region for no reason. But yeah, the attitude, the last part is partially subjective, but it is also what saddens me the most. Many players voiced their frustration and opinion online and at the tournament, hoping for TPC to listen. I was willing to believe they were only inexperienced in running events, but the attitude shown by the TPC representatives there changed my mind. They are fully aware of player requests, but they simply refuse to listen. What sealed the deal was this behavior from the representatives. When the tournament was about to end, some players tried to speak to them about a request in Japanese in a polite manner, but before we could even finish the first sentence, the representative with higher stats immediately showed a visually annoyed expression, like he knew that what we were going to say, so he ordered the other representative to stay and listen. And then himself left restlessly without listening. After we spoke to the other representative, the first word he responded was impossible. We're all shocked and disbelieved by their attitude, not even sugarcoating, not even pretending to care. We as players dedicating our time and energy because we love the game are not even treated with basic social manners. writing with my last bit of hope, a hope for the dire situation of Asian VGC to change. The request is simple: to stop the differential treatment, let us play the game like how other players can. TPCI and more players outside Asia can know about this and pressure TPC into changing, because they would not communicate with us. Many players here are quitting after TPC's mess for the past few years, and I know if there is no change soon, the community I love and am proud to be a part of will cease to exist soon. I think this is really, it's the ultimate lesson on this, because like there was a time before, like, because TPC only took over Taiwan, took over these regions, like that's a few years ago. It was not too long ago that all these regions were a part of kind of their own circuit, except Korea. Korea was always part of TPC and had all those problems for a long time, I think, because they had their own little division down there as well. But yeah, there was a time before where a lot of these regions like Southeast Asia were able to just play in the Western circuit, and of course this was kind of disadvantageous to them, but it kind of led to a lot of like good groups here. Like you would have premier challenges, you'd have these like big online grassroots streams, and the scene was like able to function in like kind of that's a good way. And like I really did always admire watching a lot of these events, and some of the grassroots production from like organizations like the Trainer Shed. And if TPC isn't willing to put in like proper effort, I do really wish that there was some way to bring them back under TPCI and like have TPCI take care of the handling. Because like, even though I don't think TPCI is a perfect organization, obviously we've had our own fair amount of misgivings, but I don't think any of the misgivings us Western players have had even like compares to the misgivings that TPC players have gone through this in like the past month. Like I said, it's like Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, like all of these regions, Korea, like all these, even Japan has like a lot of misgivings with the current circuit too, because like their qualifications got, their first round of qualifiers got canceled. It got, what was the term for it? Their first round of qualifications just got completely canceled, and they had to like re-qualify again, which was very weird too. So this is like a constant thing that's just been happening with every Asian community and every like bunch of competitive players, and ultimately like once you decide to protest it, they're all gone. And like at that point, if you're not willing to communicate, you're not willing to acknowledge the protests of your player base, that this means the scene can't function, and the scene shouldn't function, and it should ultimately just die. And that's like kind of sad, honestly. But yeah, this is just all my thoughts on it. Of course, support all these players. I think they made the very brave decision to ultimately decide to protest it like this, because like it's hard. Like they're giving up a day to invite. That's like a paid trip to Japan for a game they love. Like I think all these players would love to go to Japan, love to compete at this level, and now they just can't. I mean, all these day 2 invites are gone. They're not going to get any support. They're not going to even be able to go to Worlds. It's just tough. Like, there's not really a happy ending to this story. And I hope that this protest will at least make them listen a little bit. But like, the sad thing in all this, I don't feel like they will. I really don't feel like they will listen. And yeah, I mean, that's the whole situation, I guess. Let me know what some of your thoughts are on this. It's really sad for the whole Korean scene in general, and it kind of this pisses me off as like a competitive player to this hear all these situations just keep happening, you know? And it's just how it is. It keeps happening. Who knows, man?